Today we're looking at why everything changes in retirement after 62. One of the big misconceptions about retirement is that age 65 is the magic number. But the truth is, turning 62 triggers several critical changes that most people aren't prepared for. Over all my years working as a financial advisor, I've seen countless clients caught off guard by big shifts that happen at this specific age. That's exactly why I'm making the video today, to show you some of the major changes that happen when you choose to retire early at 62 and how that could impact your entire retirement strategy. So let's get right into it. The idea of the video today stems from some research that was put out not too long ago from the New York Federal Reserve Bank, and it shows that people want to retire early. Now, I could have told you that without a Fed study, but regardless, the data backs up what I see every single day. There's been a big shift since the pandemic. The research showed that the percentage of workers who said that they plan to work beyond age 62 dropped from almost 55% of folks before the pandemic to just over 45% in the most recent study. I think this is yet another way living through the pandemic has changed what people value. And rather than the primary goal being, I'll work as long as I'm able and I'll build the biggest pile of money that I can, there's been a shift to, I'll work until I have enough so that I can begin to fully enjoy my life as soon as possible. And while I have the most health remaining to do so. That's the backdrop of what we're talking about today. And so let's get into the changes. Here's number one. If you're watching this somewhere where you get all 4 seasons, where the weather changes. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. Sometimes we get 3 seasons in like a single day. Let me paint you a picture. Winter's on the way, so you decide, this is the year I'm going big. I'm buying the best top of the line winter coat around, and you do. And it feels incredible. It feels like you're wearing a warm hug when you put the thing on. Now fast forward to June. Is the coat any less good? No. Are you gonna wear it outside in June? No. Why? Because it's a winter coat. And it's summertime now. The season has changed. How about your investment strategy? When you enter a new season in life, do you change it? You better, but the sad fact is I see people all the time who don't. The strategy that works while you're accumulating, while you're working, which is a growth-based strategy, doesn't work when the seasons change. Sadly, lots of folks follow logic somewhere along the lines of this. My investments are great. I made X% last year. It's grown over all these years to this big old pile of money. And here's the thing, that's completely true. It's still a good investment strategy. The coat is still good in June, but it's no longer a good investment strategy for you because your season has changed. You have to shift from the growth-oriented investment strategy that most people have during their working years to a strategy geared toward preservation and income because you need different things from your portfolio in retirement than you do when you were working. Now, I got lots of videos about this, about how to put together a proper retirement income plan, but that's not the point of this video, so I'm going to leave it there for right now. I'm going to come back to this in another video in the next couple of weeks, and we'll work out an example of a full retirement income plan. Make sure that you don't miss it. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe now so that you'll be notified when the video comes out. Big change number 2, when retiring at 62, healthcare. Now, this one is less of a surprise than something that you absolutely just have to have a plan for before you decide to retire. If you're nearing this stage in life, no doubt you already know that healthcare is going to be a major expense in retirement. It's currently estimated that healthcare in retirement will run around $157,000 over the course of a person's retirement, which is just bananas. But here's the big issue. This isn't one of those jump and learn how to fly on the way down things. This is something you got to understand the cost of before you make the decision and understand what your plan is going to be. Now, generally here, you got 3 options if you're going to retire before 65 when you'll become eligible for Medicare. Option number 1 is to COBRA. That's a continuation of benefits. You keep your existing work health insurance. You have to pay the full cost of the insurance to do so. That can get real expensive real quick. I've seen premiums as high as $2,000, $2,500 a month to continue your existing coverage. The second issue beyond cost here is that you might not be able to keep your benefits as long as you need. Depending on your employer, you can continue your coverage for 18 months, sometimes up to 36 months. Now, you can always switch off of this and move to something else, but in general, if you've only got 18 months worth of potential coverage and you're retiring 3 years before Medicare will kick in, you gotta have some other plan in place as well. Option number 2 is private health insurance. You just go out to an insurance company and buy yourself a policy. The cost of something like this often depends on your health, because there are some plans that will look specifically at you and your health to determine what the cost will be. You can get pretty good coverage this way, and the costs are always subject to change, but could be a viable option for you. You need to seek that out before you make the decision. Option number 3 is the most popular one. It's the one I see most often for early retirees, and that's going out to the ACA marketplace. That's the Affordable Care Act, often referred to as Obamacare. Sometimes it gets a bad rap, but all things considered, you can typically get pretty decent insurance here, but it's far less costly than either of the first two routes, especially if you qualify for a subsidy. The subsidies go a lot higher than you might think from an income standpoint. In general, a married couple can have almost $80,000 a year in income and still get some sort of subsidy to lower the cost of their insurance on the marketplace. Now, if you're still in the lead up phase, you're a few years out from retirement, if your current work plan is a high deductible plan, here's another tip. If you have the chance to open an HSA account, do it and start maxing the thing out immediately if you're not already doing it. I've talked about it here before. If you're not familiar, triple tax-free money that can be used to cover medical expenses. I think of it kind of like building up a war chest for something that you know is inevitable, and it's the most efficient way to do it, to put together money that you can use for healthcare and retirement. Now, change number 3 is one that doesn't sound like a problem at first glance, but it can be a doozy, and so stick with me for 1 minute on this one. Your ability to obtain credit changes when you retire. Now, the first response here for most folks is like, so what? What do I care? I paid off all of my stuff a long time ago. I'm not worried about borrowing money. Let me explain first why it changes, and then I'll get into why it matters. Now, the biggest change here is what's called your DTI. That's your debt to income ratio. It's a calculation that lenders look at to see if you have enough income coming in to support the payments of whatever money you're looking to borrow. Typically, a max ratio is somewhere between 35 and 45%, depending on the lender and what type of credit you're applying for. Here's the rub. Typically, when you retire, your income, at least on paper, goes down. Lower income means a lower amount of debt can be supported, which can cause problems in the event that you do need to do some borrowing. Let me paint a picture for you. You're cruising along in retirement and something catastrophic happens, a major health diagnosis, and you need to get to cash, a lot of it, and fast. Drawing from IRAs creates a couple of problems here. One, potential taxes. We're talking about large, unexpected distributions that can wreck your tax plan. 2, market timing. Depending on what's going on in the markets, you only get to spend that money once. Is now the time that you want to sell the assets to access the money. Now, if you need it and you don't have a choice, what are you going to do? And then you have an idea. Hey, we're sitting on this house. It's worth like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, maybe $1 million. We'll just borrow from the house for now. No taxes to worry about there. And then we'll pay it back in pieces as the market recovers. Here's the issue. Depending upon your income level and how the bank will look at your assets, they may or may not be willing to lend or to lend as much as you need. And so here's the fix. I recommend it to clients all the time. Take out a home equity line of credit before you retire. Now you need to figure out a few things here. 1, make sure there's no annual fee. 2, make sure that it's a good rate. They're variable rates. Typically they're tied to prime. Right now, prime plus 0 seems to be a pretty good going rate. And then 3, find out how long the draw period is. How long can you access the money? If you never use it, it doesn't cost you anything. But in the event that you do need it, you aren't scrambling and taking a subpar deal. As the saying goes, better to have and not need than to need and not have. Now, the home equity thing isn't something that you necessarily hear on a financial advisor YouTube channel, but that's an example of the sort of thing we talk with our clients about all the time that goes beyond the normal run-of-the-mill retirement stuff. If you want some extra help like that in planning your retirement, click the first link in the description where my team and I will review your situation and help you develop a game plan that works for you. Number 4 is up next, and it's a less tangible change, but maybe the most important one we've talked about yet. A successful retirement isn't dictated by numbers and percentages as much as you might think. It's determined by your mindset and the actions you take, which often have very little to do with the numbers at all. And so here's a place where those two roads meet. You have to give yourself permission to spend the money. Again, it's easier said than done. It might sound like a no-brainer if you aren't retired yet, but trust me, once you retire and the paycheck stops, the natural human inclination is to do one of these, just to tighten up, and you go, well, I don't have the money coming in anymore. I have to preserve what I have. And that's true, but it's a balancing act. You have to balance being reasonable with your resources and actually living your life. I've seen this countless times where people won't spend the money even though they have plenty because they're scared of the what if. You get one retirement. Living it with a knot in your stomach every time you have a spending decision is not the way to do it. And so the fix here is a 3-bucket retirement plan. I've said it a billion times before. Give different money, different jobs. That gives you insulation for the future while also giving you the cash flow to check those things off the bucket list without getting sick to your stomach with what they cost. Now, if you're already retired or you're on the precipice of it, and what I just said about the queasy feeling rings true to you, one of two things is happening here. 1, you don't have enough resources put away, and this is just your inside voice telling you that. Or 2, you need a better plan because you have plenty of resources, but you haven't put them to work in a way that will give you inner calm and free you up to live your life in retirement free from this scarcity mindset. Now, the last big change, and I saved the best one for last, this is the one people miss most of all. Up to this point, we've talked a lot about money and the money end of things, but the biggest miss, the change people don't see coming, are all the things that have existed in your life for the first 60 years that are about to go away. I mean the stuff like having daily interactions with friends and colleagues, working toward a common goal, the feeling of accomplishment of simply doing every day at work. Now, you may not like work. You may be ready to be done with work as soon as it's possible, and I think that you should. As you know, I'm a huge proponent of retiring early. I've literally built my practice around helping people do just that. But separate from the math, you gotta have a plan to address the other holes in your life that you're about to create, because there's some big ones. When everything changes, even if it's a change for the better, you gotta find ways to fill up all of the areas of your life, not just replacing the paycheck. Now, this topic isn't the point of the video, so I'll keep this part brief, but have a good understanding of what some of those other areas of your life that are about to change are when you retire. And make sure your retirement plan incorporates strategies for them as well. Now that you know the major changes that hit at 62, you need to understand one thing. These age-related shifts are just the beginning of the retirement journey. You can't walk away from this video thinking you got it all figured out just because you know some of the things that are coming when you go early. There's so much more that goes into navigating the different phases of retirement. If you want to learn how to make the most of all of the seasons of your retirement, click the link in the description to book a no-cost call with me, and I'll see you next week.